Um, a very good afternoon to all of you. The topic for today's panel was building visionary schools for the 21st century. We are a 22-year-old organization primarily into preschools by the name of Shemrock. 4 years back, more than 1 lakh children had studied from our preschools. And there was a constant pressure from our parents saying that, why are you sending our children away? You've done a wonderful job at the preschool level with our children, and we would like you to continue the classes ahead. Keep adding one class after the other, and make yourself into a 10+2 school. So we started researching on what kind of schools would children of today and tomorrow require. What can we possibly provide, what's missing in the current school system. Just like 22 years back, when we started with colorful preschools, we made interesting learning environments. People said, what kind of schools are these? Why are schools so colorful? They'll distract the children from education. And we created little preschool hubs in towns across the country where children love to come to school. There have been numerous examples that when we work on Sundays and Saturdays, I see parents coming with children showing them, see, Shemrock is closed today. Aaj chutti hai, because they don't understand the concept of Saturdays and Sundays. And that is how much they love coming to school. So parents wanted the same fun-filled environment to continue beyond the preschool years. So when we asked schools, are we ready for the future? Are your schools future ready? And mostly we would get an answer as, of course. Our schools have moved on from a rote-based learning, from a monologue, to something what resembles this today. So with this is what is commonly being seen in the private schools. But it made us think, are we really ready for the future? Is this enough? Having an interactive whiteboard, digital content, a student response system, a plasma TV, is that really enough for the future? And this was an exercise that we did 3 years back while designing our school system. What were the changes that are happening in the 21st century? There's a lot of pressure on schools right now, the macro level and micro level. And there are internal pressures, changing needs of students, changing needs of the community and parents. So all this is putting pressure on the schools. And here we are talking about putting up an interactive whiteboard and saying we are future ready. That's definitely not enough. Of course, students' needs are changing. They need to have critical thinking. They need to have all those skills that we talked about and we know about. We've been hearing about conference after conference. Research after research has been showing these things are required. And the community needs people of sound values. That's something that's not talked about a lot. We are seeing what's going on around us. Spiritualism, religion, values, these are confusing children. And they're making them very cynical. So the external pressures, of course, technology, information available everywhere, changes in social structures, family support structures of joint families breaking apart, spiritual hunger, globalization, ethical issues, ecological issues. So there's a lot of pressure on these children when they go out of school. Again, is an interactive whiteboard an answer to all this? No. Schooling must change in fundamental ways, not just incremental ways. If I have installed a projector, that is not future ready. So incremental change will definitely not be enough. OECD, the economies for something in Europe, had done a scenario planning of what schools would look like in 2020. And one of the scenarios was that schooling just becomes irrelevant. Schools may become irrelevant. Schools may cease to exist completely by 2020. Of course, it was an extreme scenario, but it is possible. So if we don't innovate and make a sudden change, you see the downward thing? This is where schools will be. So what we decided was things need to change. And disruptive change is required. So who needs to change when it comes to schools? 3 aspects: educators, the processes, and the learning environment. So how do educators need to change? First is a shift in attitude towards learning, towards students, and towards change as a concept, which is going to be constant. And also, educators will see a shift in their roles. Of course, this is Maradona coaching Messi. So teachers will have to change from teachers, from knowledge experts to coaches. Just like you see in a soccer match, the coach does not play the game. In the same way, teachers are not going to be there with their children for their lives. They have to assume the role of a coach to encourage them when they're doing well, to point out areas where they need to improve, and maybe pick them up when they fall. So the role of the educators will change. So that was first, the people need to change. Second, we realize the processes need to change. We have moved. There has definitely been a change. We have moved from teacher-centric now. We keep saying that there needs to be a shift from teacher-centric. Schools today are changing from teacher-centric to what is now is technology-centric. So these IT solutions in schools are driving. We are changing from teacher-centric to technology-centric, but eventually we need to change to student-centric, which we are all aware of. So these are the concepts that we built when we were making our model. So what kind of future do we see for our schools? Did we see for the schools that we would build? We would do away with standardized curriculum, and we see that in the coming years it will happen. Private organizations are aware of that. The government is aware of that. There'll be no memorization of disconnected facts. Memorization, yes, should be there, and I think one of the reasons for success of Indians is memorization. We don't need to look at a calculator every time we do a simple mathematics. So, no memorization of disconnected facts. We see that the change will happen, that there will be a shift from no classroom level teaching to more personalized systems. And we see that there will be no standard exams. There will be assessments, peer assessment, self-assessment, teacher assessment, but no standardized. We will move away from that. So that's the processes we thought while building our model. Third, we try to foresee how will learning environments change? How would the physical infrastructure change? We see in the future that virtual reality setups are most likely going to be there. 6 years back, digital content was the in thing. A few years now, last few years we've been hearing about 3D content which pops out of the screen when children wear glasses. We are moving to a virtual reality setup. Whether it's in geography, as ma'am said, children will actually, it'll be like visiting the country itself. If it's history, children will go back a period of time. And technology, although we keep talking about technology as a big change thing, the big thing that's happening, I feel that it's going to be very well integrated into the learning and teaching process. It's not going to be a big deal for anybody, for teachers or for students. It'll just be a part of normal life. So it'll be less visible as a separate entity. Learning spaces. Schools, what we feel, will become community-type centers, like community centers that are there in our neighborhoods. Maybe operating 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Children can come and go, pick up whatever they want, learn whatever they want, and act as social structures as well. The social families are going to break down. So social structures, value inculcation is what the role of schools would be. And we've seen that already happen in preschools. What we teach in preschools at Shemrock, anybody can teach at home. It's not rocket science. A, B, C, D, you can make it fun-filled. You can do almost 90% of what we do in a preschool at home, provided that mother gives quality time. But what I've noticed when I ask parents, what is the biggest change that you see in your child at Shemrock? They say they notice things like sharing, taking turns, learning from friends. These are things that are now in preschool. That is basically the only value addition that we are doing. Yet every child comes to a preschool because that is something that cannot be replicated at home. We are not living joint families right now. So that is what schools will also become in the future. So in a nutshell, what we thought was to devise our model, we have to understand who our learners are, what they need, what do they expect, how do they learn, and how can we make learning interesting for them, and then continuously keep improving. The challenge is that we are moving from the column on the left to the column on the right. There's a definite shift in the society, and we will all move together. Somebody will lead, somebody will lag. But we are moving from teacher-directed to learner-centered. We all will move. But right now, as private schools, our job is to find the right balance which matches the child's needs and the community's needs. I cannot go into say, I'll do away with the CBSE and ICSE curriculum and make my own curriculum. It will not be accepted. We are not there yet. Our teachers are not there yet. Our curriculums are not there yet. But yes, the shift is definitely happening. And for us as schools, the important thing is to prepare ourselves for this shift. And this is the model that we created out of everything. We call it Shem EduMax. So in the middle, we have the core subjects over here. We have theme-based learning activities. We have a Sanskar program. We have Super Saturdays. Since Saturdays are holidays, we had some plans for that. Technology-based learning. And we had a whole lot of other supplemental things over and above what the traditional schools would do in the core subjects. And everything, the learning environments, the curriculum, the teaching methods, and the evaluation program were all built around this. So this is what we set out to create 3 years back. And we made this model. And our schools were called Shemford. The reason why we called them Shemford was we said, okay, after the rock-solid foundation at Shemrock, children will find their path. And Ford, F-O-R-D, means a path, a shallow path. Children will find their path at Shemford. And as a result, first year we had 2 schools. Next year we had 7 schools. This year we have 25 schools, including 1 abroad. And we are now the country's one of the leading, fastest growing school chains across the country. So the school model has worked very well, and it's all about making learning interesting. So although we do not pretend to have a crystal ball into the future, but our job as educators is to constantly think, to innovate, to think beyond what is present. That is the only way we can do justice to our children. So wish you all the very best, and thank you very much for listening.